Hey guys, it's LNT here. Welcome back, or if you're new, welcome to the channel. So, Fantastic Four came out, and it was actually good. Like, genuinely a decent film. God, it's so nice to say that about a Marvel film again. So, I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get straight into it. I'll start off spoiler free, and then we'll talk about the plot more towards the end of the video. Visually, this film was amazing. It had sort of a retro futuristic style, like with like the 60s with a majorly advanced technology, but it worked really well. And while I was watching it, I didn't really spot anything that looked out of place or weird. It all just fit together perfectly. The CGI was also really good in the film. There was massive improvements on this compared to films like Ant-Man Quantumania and Thor Love and Thunder. The only time where it was noticeable for me in a bad way was actually with the Silver Surfer. The look in general just looked a little bit off to me. I don't think it looked any better than the one from the 2007 movie, which really it should have considering the leaps in technology. But aside from that, I don't really have any complaints graphics wise. I thought the designs of the costumes were good in terms of kind of how they looked, but it was the material that just didn't quite land for me. The best way I can describe it is it looked a bit cottony or a bit threaded, and I personally preferred the design from the original Fantastic Four films from the 2000s. But that's just me, and even though in one or two scenes it didn't look great, they still looked amazing overall. Oh, and Herbie was great, both visually and as a character. I believe it was a practical effect as well, not really any CGI, which just makes it even more impressive to me. So fair play for that one. The design of the thing was an obvious nod to Jack Kirby's design for the character. There's actually a few Jack Kirby references throughout the film, including a scene which may have been intended to show Kirby with Stan Lee designing comics, as well as a quote of his showing up before the credits roll. But back to the thing, the design worked really well. They did a really good job of showing the emotion on his face, which can be quite difficult with a full CGI character, especially with him being made of rocks. But yeah, it was great. And he rocked the bird too. Get it? Rocks? Ah, don't worry about it. The team's tower and rocket ship both looked awesome, and especially the ship was quite a unique design in the MCU, and it was quite refreshing. What can I say? The whole film looked fantastic. Get it? Fantastic. Let's move on to the characters who were portrayed really well. The team dynamic and chemistry was great from the get go. Reed and Sue were believable as a couple. Not surprisingly, if you've been seeing Pedro and Vanessa's media appearances together, definitely something going on there. Ben was dealt with brilliantly. My only nitpick with him is that I wish he was slightly more fleshed out as a character. We do get a couple of scenes with him where he's being quite family oriented or giving some kid to laugh on the street, but I just wish they'd gone a bit deeper with him. But honestly, he was still great. Johnny was also really fun, and although he was still a ladies' man in some sense of the word, it wasn't in the same way by any stretch of the imagination as Chris Evans' portrayal of the character. He was pining after the Silver Surfer for half of the film, to be honest, but that served the narrative pretty well, so no massive complaints for me there. It was a fun character, but honestly, he was more fleshed out in this one than probably any other Fantastic film, and in really showed more intellect as well, so that was nice to see. In terms of the powers, again, they look really good all round. Obviously, the things weren't anything unusual aside from the look of the character himself, but Sue's powers look fantastic in comparison to the old films. And if I remember correctly, she used them in a much wider variety of ways, which was great to see. Human Torch looks amazing. The CGI for him was phenomenal, even better than the films in the 2000s and Fan Four Stick. And the scene near the beginning of the film, which was also in the trailer where he absorbed all the fire from the building, wow. Now, Reed's powers were a weird one. They did look good, but we just didn't see much of them. This film really leaned into his main power being his intellect, a move which honestly I did appreciate, and I do think it was the right way to go for sure. However, as a result, we do barely end up seeing him use his stretching powers, and most of what we do see is him using them to essentially act like Spider Man. There wasn't much imagination with them, I think, is what I'm trying to say. There was nothing like him using them to put his arm under a door to unlock it from the inside, for example, unlike the 2005 film. The main themes of this film were about hope, resilience, and family, and this was evident and carried throughout the entire plot of the film. So, speaking of which, let's get into the plot. Now, there will be more spoilers in this section, so if you've not watched the film and you don't want spoilers, now's your time to leave. So, the film starts with an original retro Fantastic Four style logo, rather than the typical MCU logo with all the clips with the films inside the letters. You know the one. I think they've done this to symbolise the fact that this film is set on a different Earth to the original MCU. This is set on Earth 828, whereas the MCU is supposedly on Earth 616, which is technically meant to be the comic book universe, but that's a story for another day. It looked great, and as much as I do like the typical logo, I do have to say it was nice to have a change. Now we begin with Sue finding out that she's pregnant and telling Reed. Apparently, they've been trying for 2 years, and Reed was starting to lose hope that it would ever happen. So obviously, the buzzing before Reed instantly goes back into science mode and starts panicking. Sue tries to calm him down and says nothing will change, but as you'll see later on, that doesn't seem to help. We move on to the 4 year celebration of the Fantastic Four, where we get to see footage of them going up to space and how they got the powers. Obviously, the accident happens and they return to Earth with Ben, now the Thing, punching through the window of the spaceship, revealing his rocky arm for the first time. Once they return to Earth, they pretty much instantly become Earth's protectors and have remained that way for the next 4 years. We see a montage of them saving the city and the Earth from various threats, where obviously we get to see a cool shot of Johnny absorbing the fire, as mentioned earlier, as well as the character Mole Man, who gets defeated in a flashback after trying to steal the Pan Am building. Honestly, especially in these scenes, it just gave me Incredibles vibes, and Mole Man was basically just a perfect live action rendition of the Underminer. During this montage, they also have a brief scene of the team defeating the Red Ghost and his Super Apes. And I believe Red Ghost was actually meant to have been played by John Malkovich. I think he appears in one of the trailers that I'll be showing in the background of this video. But he was unfortunately cut from the film, which is a real shame. We do get to see the Super Apes very briefly, but he unfortunately didn't make the cut. We then see a bit more of Mole Man's backstory, with Sue making a peace deal with him, as well as Sue also making another deal where other countries in the world have to give up their arms, if I remember rightly. The Latvian president or prime minister or whatever didn't appear to be there though, and I don't remember that being mentioned again in the rest of the film. Maybe I missed it, or maybe it just got lost in the cuts like John Malkovich did. Not entirely sure. After the montage and the Fantastic Four celebration, we move to the scene in the trailer where Ben's cooking dinner. He's really into cooking in this film, and Reed and Sue turn up just 1 minute late, which is noticeable to Ben and Johnny. Ben guesses almost straight away that they're pregnant after seeing Reed's not so convincing poker face. Obviously, the whole family's over the moon, and Johnny's even throwing a friendly jab at Reed that he's out of his depth. Over the course of the pregnancy, Reed starts baby-proofing the tower with the help of Herbie, as well as getting rid of the 47 criminal gangs in the area to make it safer, and also discover how to teleport an egg. Reed is really getting himself worried throughout the entire pregnancy and focusing on making the world safe rather than doing the basic stuff like building a crib, something he got Herbie to do instead. Reed and Sue end up having an argument about how Reed's dealing with this and how whether the baby's going to have any issues. So to calm him down, Sue makes her stomach invisible so that he can see the baby, which was a cool demonstration of her power, to be honest. Something which also Reed says is a bullshit way to win an argument, which I wholeheartedly agree with. While this is going on, the Thing is out shopping or something, but he goes past a school and starts making some kids laugh with his catchphrase and pretending to throw a car at them, something which the teacher jokes would be a good idea. It seems like they're setting her up to be a love interest for Ben, but other than him going to see her later in the film when the world's about to end, it doesn't really go anywhere, so maybe that's maybe going to be a sequel or something. Johnny quite obviously wants to go back to space, keeps asking Reed to upgrade the spacesuits, and as if by magic, while the team are stood on the balcony, the clouds light up and the Silver Surfer comes down from the sky. Johnny flies up to meet her with the rest of the crew following in the flying car. The Silver Surfer asks the Fantastic Four if they're Earth's protectors, to which they say they are, and then she warns of the Universal Force Galactus coming. After she flies off, Johnny immediately goes up to follow her in the sky and grabs a board at the last second when she turns around and says something alien to him and throws him off the board back to Earth. Back in the tower, Reed says that she went too fast to figure out where she went and track her, but they did track her energy signatures and found 5 planets that disappeared that matched the same signature as her, so Reed thinks that they were targeted the same as Earth. Johnny goes off and starts listening to some of the recordings that Reed's found from these planets and figures out that it's the same language that the Silver Surfer spoke to him. He tells Sue about this and starts to investigate further before being interrupted by Reed, who wants to show him their new and improved spacesuits. That's right, folks, they're going back to space with a pregnant astronaut. They do a little press conference to the world and then they head up to space with the world watching. They travel to the heat signature where they've tracked the Silver Surfer to, and I've got to say the visuals of space out of the window on the spaceship, and also the ship flying through light speed was very impressive and quite a unique way of showing it as well. And once they get to the planet, they track the heat signature from the middle of the planet, and then the planet explodes in front of their eyes. There's a huge ship breaking out of the planet from the middle, and the ship tractor beams the Fantastic Four, and they're escorted to meet Galactus by the Silver Surfer. It turns out that it's actually her that chooses the planets he eats, confirming Reed's suspicion that it was targeted. She reveals to Johnny that the phrase that she said to him earlier in the film meant "die with yours," which will become important later on. We see Galactus for the first time, and wow, he's ominous, he's commanding, and he's fucking massive. He looks great. A fantastic design, which was also a practical costume as well, which just makes it even better. It reveals more about his backstory, that he used to be a small man from another world billions of years ago, before his eternal hunger. I love the fact that they did something different and made him a universal force rather than just a force of evil. That was nice. He notices that Sue's pregnant and says the child has the power of cosmic and that he'll spare the Earth if they hand over the child. He then causes Sue to go into labour, but the team manage to escape the ship and eventually escape the planet as well. They are being followed, but just as the Silver Surfer catches up with them, and I mean, a hand in Sue's stomach kind of catch up with them, they go to light speed and jump away. She does catch up to them again, but they just end up getting her stuck in a gravitational pull of a neutron star for about a month, which allows them just enough time to get home before she gets back to Galactus. After they've trapped her, they slingshot around the neutron star to get home due to the lightspeed engine being damaged, and Sue gives birth to their baby Franklin while they're on the ship. They return to Earth to applause from the world who see that Sue's given birth while in space. They go to do a press conference having not prepared a statement and are asked about how they defeated Galactus immediately. For some reason, Reed decides to tell them that they refused to give him the baby rather than just saying they couldn't defeat him, and the media is quite rightly outraged. Reed responds to the concerns and questions by saying he doesn't know if they're safe, and then the press conference ends with more outrage. Meanwhile, Silver Surfer's just freed herself from the neutron star and returned to Galactus. There's some exposition on Galactus where he says that he needs Franklin as he can absorb his eternal hunger due to his power and let Galactus finally die. Silver Surfer doesn't seem too keen on the idea, stating that he's just a child, but Galactus doesn't care. The Fantastic Four discover that Galactus may actually predate the universe, so it's no wonder he wants to finally rest. It seems as though he's potentially come from the universe that was here before ours and carried into the new one with these powers. Remember those recordings that Johnny had with the same language as the Silver Surfer spoke? Well, Johnny's now using them to decipher her language after she told him what that phrase meant. It does kind of seem like they're just giving him something to do that should have been Reed doing the big brain stuff, you know what I mean? But it was kind of a nice change to see a smart human torch, to be honest, so not a massive complaint. As the news reports that Galactus is passing Jupiter, people are starting to lose faith in the Fantastic Four's ability to deal with the situation, especially considering the fact they aren't handing over Franklin. Reed eventually makes a comment about it being a mathematical, ethical, and achievable solution, and Sue does not take that well. But that spurs her on to go out and meet the crowd outside of the building, to let them meet Franklin properly and basically say that although she isn't sacrificing a child for the planet, she also isn't sacrificing the planet for the child either, and they will find a solution. The solution that they come up with is to use the teleportation technology Reed has named the Bridge in order to teleport the entire planet. They found a new solar system and can travel within 2% of the habitable zone, so there's a historic mobilization between all the countries on the globe to build the machine, all of the necessary towers, and also have regular blackouts to conserve power. We get to see a nice scene between just Reed and Franklin where Reed is saying that he has always had the problem of needing to know everything, but Franklin's the one thing that he doesn't understand. And he seems okay with that, and I think he knows that it'll help him grow as a person. We time jump to when the Earth is ready to teleport, and the thing suddenly has a beard. This was pretty much the only indication that we'd time jump, though. The film throughout has had a few time jumps, and it isn't really great at letting us know when one's occurred, if I'm honest. I'm all for not spoon feeding the audience for sure, but it was quite difficult to tell in this film. They could have done a bit better with it. As the planet's about to teleport with just 5 seconds to go, the Silver Surfer flies down and starts destroying towers, disabling the teleportation field. She then goes for Franklin, but Johnny intercepts and ends up playing her the alien recordings and even speaking the language himself. How he's learned to speak an alien language that quickly is beyond me. We find out that the Silver Surfer's made a deal with Galactus to become his scout in order to save her planet, something which she says that Franklin would do if he was old enough to make the decision himself. Although Johnny offers to take Franklin's place, they only want the baby due to his power. This makes Reed obviously panicky, and he decides that bringing Galactus to the planet will be the only way to defeat him, and they'll have to use Franklin to do this while rerouting the power grid to the last bridge. This will only give them 37 seconds to keep the portal open, so they'll have to work fast to push Galactus through the portal in time. And also, I believe the 37 seconds may also be a reference to the fact that this is the 37th film in the MCU. Sue makes a deal with Mole Man to shelter the people of the city underground in Subterranea while they bring Galactus to the city. Galactus unplugs from his ship, which I thought was a nice touch, like he needs something to sustain his eternal hunger while he's travelling in between planets, or meals in his case. and he makes his way to Earth and jumps into the water next to the city. He's bigger than the skyscrapers, but only just. He's obviously huge, but I don't know. I expected him to look a little bit bigger on the planet. I know he's difficult to show this on screen, but with how menacing he looked in space and in the ship, I just thought it was a bit underwhelming on Earth, to be honest. Now Galactus has arrived. Johnny goes to take Franklin back to the tower while Reed replaces the baby carrier with an empty one. But just before Galactus steps into the trap they've set for him, he notices this and zeroes his sights back on Franklin and the tower, calling Reed and the team clever bugs for the deception. For me, this just further hit home the supposed inevitability of Galactus, with the fact that he can still appreciate their efforts to stop him, even though there's nothing they can really do. Yes, it is somewhat overconfidence, but I still think it comes with being a literal force of nature. So, yeah, no, I'll give him that one. The team goes to stop him reaching the tower, and the visuals in this scene were amazing. Johnny sets Galactus on fire, the thing gets absolutely yeeted into space before the Human Torch rescues him, and when Galactus starts attacking Sue, Reed gets involved and starts climbing up him. Now, this leads to a scene which just confirmed to me that they've nerfed Reed's powers. Galactus starts stretching him, and without even going that far in comparison to what I'd have expected him to withstand, Reed is screaming. It just seems very strange to me, like his powers are so restrictive in comparison to different versions of the character we've seen. Anyway, Johnny carries the thing and throws him into punching Galactus's face while shouting clobber in time for the first time and only time in the movie, and this frees Reed from his grasp. While the teams regroup and Galactus gets to the tower, which goes into shutdown, but he instantly breaks through the shutters and grabs his salvation, Franklin. Sue sees this and steps in, using her full power to try and defeat Galactus, while the thing destroys buildings he was using as support, and Reed saves Franklin. Sue pushes Galactus into the portal, and just as it looks like he's about to escape, Johnny starts flying towards him, saying goodbye to his nephew, and then he gets fucking Rose Tico'd by the Silver Surfer, who pushes him out of the way and pushes Galactus and herself through the portal just before it closes. Obviously, I'm glad it wasn't Johnny that went through, but I just can't look at a sacrifice play like that the same again after The Last Jedi. After Galactus has been defeated, we realise that Sue's passed out from the effort she put in to defeat him. Well, I thought she passed out. It turns out she actually died. There's a heartbreaking scene where Reed's trying to save her with the team standing round, but nothing happens. She's gone. He goes to put Franklin on his chest to say goodbye, and as Franklin starts to touch her, she starts to move, and next thing, one big breath, and she's back alive. So, with the team back together, the film finishes with the Fantastic Four bailing out of the TV show that they'd appeared on at the start of the film due to an alert. There's a funny scene with the three of the guys trying to figure out this futuristic baby seat, and the film ends. In terms of post-credit scenes, the first one is definitely the only important one out of the two. This scene is 4 years after the film finishes, so they're about 8 years into the superhero careers now. Sue's reading the story to Franklin, but unfortunately not the Charles Darwin story that's apparently his favourite. She hears a noise and goes to investigate, which is when I noticed a green tint appear on the shot. We know what that means. The camera pans over to Franklin, who is stood next to Doctor Doom, with Doom's mask in his hand and his other hand on Doom's face, presumably healing it, as it's been rumoured that Doom will not have a scarred face in Doomsday. Now, the second post-credit scene is just a snippet of the Fantastic Four cartoon that they kind of mentioned earlier in the film. It's fun, but it's not really that important at all. And we do get a quote from Jack Kirby about the characters too, which was a nice touch. And that's the film. Very pleasantly surprised by this overall, if I'm honest. I've not gone into a Marvel film with expectations at all in a long time. So coming out of this one thinking, wow, that was a good film was a very nice and welcome change. I had a few nitpicks, but they were more just conveniences, really, like Johnny learning the alien language so quick, or the fact that Reed just openly told the world that he could have saved the planet but didn't, and stuff like that. But like that's all they are, really, just nitpicks. I really enjoyed the film overall. It's nowhere near the best MCU film, but it's up there for the post Endgame films for sure. For me, I think it's only Spider Man No Way Home and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that were better than this, in my opinion. This one does etch out Thunderbolts for me for sure. Well, what are your thoughts on the film? Feel free to comment below and let me know your opinions and your score for the film. For me, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you very much for watching if you've made it this far. Obviously, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.